"Can I eat the leftovers, sir?" And as he looked into the beggar's eyes, the millionaire saw a miracle unfold. The baby was crying in her arms, too loud to ignore, yet no one dared to look. Silver spoons hung suspended in the air, elegant. Conversations died on the edge of well-trained lips. Beneath the cold glow of chandeliers shaped like frozen stars, a woman with feverish eyes and a tattered coat stood in the doorway of Bistro Loire, that sacred bourgeois temple perched above Munich. She didn't ask permission, she simply walked. Each step toward the table of the solitary man felt like an unspoken crime. He saw her before anyone else did. Aaron Veit. Flawless grey suit, gold cufflinks, skin far too pale for his age. When their eyes met, something inside him froze. Not from the intrusion, but the resemblance. The baby hiccuped, hungry for warmth, but still she stood tall, spine straight, as if misery had taught her. Dignity is what's left when everything else is gone. She didn't beg. She simply pointed at the still warm plate in front of him. "The leftovers, please." The sentence dropped like a glass bomb. Too small a request for so much discomfort. And yet Aaron couldn't breathe for a full second. It wasn't just hunger. It was a gesture charged with a love that didn't scream, only endured, and something else. Something that would haunt him for nights to come, because that baby had smiled. Through tears he smiled at the first taste of mashed potatoes. Something so absurd, so small, it ached in Aaron's bones. The food shouldn't have been enough, but it was. Because that child wasn't just hungry in the stomach, he was hungry in the soul. And Aaron couldn't explain why, but in that instant, the image of Lucas, his dead son, flooded his mind. Lucas, at 2 years old, laughing, covered in tomato sauce before the car spun off the road, before the glass, before the sirens. Aaron gripped his fork so tightly the metal whined. It wasn't coincidence. It couldn't be. "What's his name?" he asked, not knowing why he was even asking. "Mika," she said, and the name came out like a whisper from the end of the world. The room's temperature seemed to drop. "Do you have a place to sleep?" She looked up at the ceiling as if stars might be there. Not tonight. But he slept in worse places. She said it without bitterness, without shame. Just as a fact, and something burned in Aaron's chest. Not pity, a distant memory of a time when he still believed he could protect someone. He signaled the waiter, ordered more food, said to bring it hot, quickly. When he looked back at her, she was already feeding the baby with trembling fingers. That's when he saw it, the scar on her left hand, small, white, almost hidden. But he knew that mark. He knew it because he had once loved someone who had the exact same one. "Where did you get that?" She looked down, then tucked her hand into her pocket. "I was born with it, a lie." Aaron leaned back in his chair, his chest tight, his eyes beginning to sting. "Who are you?" She didn't answer, but something in the way she held the baby, in the way her eyes avoided his, this woman knew too much. The kind of knowing only someone who had been very close could have. And then before he could ask anything else, she said, "Let me go. That's all I need." Aaron didn't let her. "No. Tell me now. How do you know my son?" The question came. Out like a contained scream, but she didn't back down. She simply closed her eyes. And when she opened them, Aaron's world changed forever. Because Mika wasn't supposed to exist. But he does. And I had no choice. His skin turned pale. The room spun. The wineglass shattered at the waiter's feet, and Aaron understood. Not everything, but enough. That child wasn't a stranger. He was a piece of what was left of him, and what came next might destroy what still kept him standing. The glass shards made no sound. They just shimmered on the floor like a fallen confession. Aaron didn't move. Her words still echoed in the space between his memory and the marble table. Mika wasn't supposed to exist. That sentence sliced through his spine like a cold blade. Who says something like that about their own child? Or worse, about someone else's? But there was something in her tone. A kind of pain you can't fake. The waiter approached discreetly to clean up the mess, but Aaron raised a hand, asking for silence. His eyes never left her face. She wasn't trembling anymore. The baby had fallen asleep again, but the air around. The three of them felt dense, like the whole restaurant had stopped breathing. Aaron forced his voice to come out. You said you had no choice. What choice? She lowered her eyes, and for the first time she hesitated. I can't explain everything right now, but you need to know. He's not just your grandson. The sentence was absurd, impossible. Lucas had died 3 years ago. Too young, too smart, too full of promises he never got to keep. Aaron buried that boy with his own hands. Literally, refused all staff, dug until his fingers bled, because it was the only way to touch his son's death and say, I saw, I accepted. And now, this. Lucas had a child? The question escaped like a broken prayer. She nodded. And he never told me. He didn't know either. Those 4 words shattered something Aaron had spent years trying to keep intact. Logic. What was true? What was denial? How long had it been since he'd asked anyone anything? She pulled her scarf aside, revealing a faint scar on her neck. Subtle, old, but unmistakable. Aaron closed his eyes. It was the kind of scar Lucas would have left with a kiss or a careless touch. Their youth was written in her skin. This wasn't fiction. It was history. Me and Lucas. It was brief, intense. He told me he couldn't bring me into his world, that you wouldn't approve, that too many things were happening. Aaron stood. The chair groaned beneath him. He never hid anyone from me. She looked at him with quiet firmness. Maybe he didn't hide. Maybe he just protected you from the part of him you never wanted to see. That one hurt, because it was true. Aaron had raised Lucas to be the heir, the mirror, the man who never failed. But Lucas wanted music, wanted streets and dancing late with ordinary people. Aaron wanted contracts, Lucas wanted life. Why did you come here, just for food? No, I came to return a piece that isn't mine. What do you mean? She held Mika closer. He got sick 3 days ago. High fever, tremors. He doesn't cry from hunger anymore. He cries from pain. And I have no one, no money, no name, but he has your blood. You can save him. Her final words came with no tears, no desperation, just a sharp calm, the kind that comes when someone has already accepted their own collapse, but still fights for what matters. Aaron sat back down. The waiter stood still, waiting for orders no one wanted to give. Aaron looked at the baby, the tiny eyelids, the uneven breath. Mika seemed unaware of the adult world's tension, but inside that fragile body, something was failing. Something urgent. He needs a hospital, Aaron murmured. She nodded. And he needs you for that. The woman's name remained a mystery, but her purpose did not. Aaron picked up his phone, called his private physician, the one who only answered, to billionaires and ministers. He spoke low, direct, sharp, emergency, a baby. Now, he hung up. And for the first time since the accident, the world began to move forward again. Tell me something, he asked, voice steadier now. Did you come here alone? She hesitated, and that was enough. Who else knows about him? Her lips tightened. Then she said, people who shouldn't. And one of them might be coming after us. Aaron's blood ran cold, not because of any clear threat, but because now he understood the scale of the story. That baby wasn't just a genetic legacy. He was a living threat to old secrets, and protecting him meant disturbing everything Aaron had spent his life trying to keep buried. The private hospital's lights didn't flicker. They were cold, precise, far too clean to match what Aaron felt inside. The black car had cut through the city like a surgical incision, with the woman and Mika protected in the back seat, the silence between them heavier than any emergency. Now, standing in the pediatric wing, Aaron watched as a nurse carried the baby away for testing, too small on the white sheet, struggling to breathe, and something inside him began to break. The woman, still unnamed, didn't cry. She stood near the door, arms crossed, eyes fixed on nothing, like she was back, In a shelter or a train station where the train never comes. Heron tried to make sense of what he saw in her. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was as if she had learned to disappear from the inside out. "You still haven't told me your name," he insisted, low but firm. She hesitated. Then, like pulling a root from her chest, she spoke. "Alina." The name fell between them like a spark in a dry field. "Alina. Where are you from?" She smiled, without joy. "From a place you never had to look at." Aaron swallowed hard. It was the sharpest truth he had ever heard, and maybe the one he needed most. He had spent his life surrounded by glass, marble, and contracts, far from anything that dirtied the skin or bruised the bones. But now he was here, waiting for test results that could decide the life of someone he barely knew, and strangely, could no longer imagine losing. "You said there are people who know about him, and shouldn't." "Why?" Alina took her time. When she spoke, her voice carried a different kind of weight. Because Mika was born in silence, he was never meant to be found. And when you're a woman poor and alone, anything that slips past their control becomes a threat, even a child. Their control? Who are they? Lucas got involved with dangerous people. Aaron frowned, shook his head before even realizing. "My son? No. Lucas had issues with impulsiveness, choices, but never... Did you know everything he was doing?" That question stopped him cold. He thought he had. He wanted to believe he had. But now, looking back, there were gaps. Late night, disappearances, unexplained wire transfers, names in his contact list Aaron didn't recognize, small deviations that once seemed trivial, until now. What did he get into? Alina walked to the window and stared at the frozen city. A man approached him, offered funding for the music school he wanted to start with a few friends. But the money came from somewhere else. Data trafficking, political networks, big things. Did Lucas take it? She turned to face him. No. He walked away, told me he'd clean everything up, protect me. But he ran out of time. Silence fell between them. The memory of the crash took on a different hue. Maybe Lucas didn't lose control of the car. Maybe someone helped it happen. Heron felt a dull ache in his stomach, like he was learning how to lose his son all over again, only now with deeper layers of guilt. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Alina sat slowly, her hands in her lap, like they were hiding thorns. "Because if I had shown up, Mika would have died. He's only alive because I stayed away, and because I waited. Until now." The door opened. The doctor entered, lab coat still damp from rushing. "We need to run more advanced tests. There are signs of an acute viral infection. The condition is serious. And signs of chronic malnutrition." Alina closed her eyes. Aaron clenched his fists. "Is he going to be okay?" The doctor hesitated, said they would do everything they could, that it was too early to tell. But Aaron recognized that tone. It already carried the weight of if. After the doctor left, Alina stood, faced Aaron with steady eyes. "Now you understand. I didn't come here to ask for help. I came to return what might still be saved. And after that, I disappear." "No," he replied, almost without thinking. "You're not going anywhere. You don't know me, Aaron, but I knew Lucas. And if he loved you, then you're part of him." She blinked, and her eyes welled up, for the first time. But there was still something Aaron didn't know. Something about Mika's birth. Something Alina still couldn't say. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to leave a like. The night came without warning, cold and grey like a prison hallway. The hospital windows let in only the muffled sound of wind cutting through the city. Aaron paced the waiting room, his steps rhythmic, like a sentence he was writing himself. Behind the door, Mika slept in an isolated room, monitored, under constant watch. Alina never left his side. Sitting beside the crib, she never closed her eyes, as if sleeping would be a kind of betrayal. Aaron contacted his lawyers, asked them to discreetly investigate any financial activity tied to Lucas in the 2 years before the accident. Within half an hour, the reply came, and it chilled his blood. One of the investors in the music school matched a shell company used by a money laundering group connected to high-level politicians. And that wasn't all. Lucas was being followed. The lawyer said in a low voice, "We found surveillance records, intercepted calls. This goes way beyond art or rebellion." Aaron hung up without a word. His throat burned with something he couldn't swallow. Lucas had tried to protect them and died for it. And now, Mika was the final piece of a puzzle that never should have been built. In the room, Alina stood. Mika slept, but his cheeks still burned with fever. She stepped out quietly, her footsteps light like an apology. "What did you find out?" she asked, seeing Aaron alone in the hallway. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to shield her, the other part knew she already carried the weight of the whole world. Lucas got involved with dangerous people, but it looks like he tried to get out. He was betrayed, maybe murdered. She didn't cry, just bit her lower lip, hard. "I told you it was bigger than us." "What about you? Are you being followed?" She looked around instinctively, then nodded. "A man showed up 2 days ago. He knew Mika's name, knew where we were. He said if I went to you, he'd come after us. That Mika was evidence of something that needed to be erased." Aaron shut his eyes. It was worse than he thought. The child wasn't just a secret. He was a living threat to a corrupt system still breathing in boardrooms and offices. "We're getting him out of here," Aaron said at last. "I have a place outside the city, safe, quiet. Only doctors I trust. He can recover there, and no one will." "Find him." Alina stared at him a moment too long. "You talk like you're trying to fix everything, but this can't be fixed. It's not for me, it's for him." She took a deep breath. She knew she had no more choices, and maybe, for the first time, she didn't feel completely alone. That night, the three of them left in silence. The armored car took back roads, pulling away from the city, like a ship fleeing a lighthouse about to go dark. The house was large, hidden among old pine trees, its windows dark, its walls scented, with damp wood that smelled faintly of childhood. But it was on the second day there that the first crack appeared. Mika got worse. The fever came back stronger. Aaron's private physician, an old friend, administered antibiotics and ran new tests. But something was off. The child's body reacted in unusual ways. His heartbeat spiked. His lungs were slow to respond. "I've never seen a pattern like this," the doctor muttered. "It's as if his body is fighting something that's not just physical." Aaron stood at the doorway, watching. Alina held her son, humming old lullabies. Her hands were shaking. There was panic in her eyes. "Will he survive?" Aaron asked. "They so." Doctor didn't answer right away. "If we don't stabilize him within the next 24 hours, maybe not." That's when Aaron understood. No amount of money, no mansion, no famous last name could fight what Mika was facing. This was biology at its limit, the raw edge of life. And that night, as the clock dragged forward, Aaron stepped outside. Snow was falling softly, covering the garden like a blanket of silence. He cried. For the first time in years, he cried for Lucas, for Mika, for every word. He never said, but he still didn't know. The real danger wasn't the fever, it was the man who had just found out where they were. It was nearly 3 a.m. when the motion sensor gave off a short beep. Aaron woke instantly at the sharp sound, his chest already tight with an instinct older than any security system. He got up without making a sound, crossed the hallway barefoot, eyes scanning for anything out of place. The house was wrapped in thick silence, broken only by the faint hiss of the heart monitor in Mika's room. At the control panel, the outdoor camera showed a solitary figure standing at the front gate, tall, dark coat, face hidden by a beanie and black mask. He wasn't trying to break in. He was just standing there, waiting. That stillness wasn't normal. It was the kind of calm that comes before something breaks. Aaron called Alina with a sharp whisper. She appeared in seconds, eyes wide before he said a word. "Is he here?" Aaron pointed to the screen. She didn't scream, didn't ask how. She just whispered, "I told you they'd come. It's just one for now." It's never just one. It wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Aaron knew that now. This man wasn't a thief. He wasn't a messenger. He was a warning. And maybe the beginning of the end. As Aaron activated the internal locks, Alina went to the bedroom and gently picked up Mika. The child was asleep, but the sweat on his forehead and the pale tint to his skin showed he was still fighting. They couldn't run. Not now. The doctor was due back at 7 and Mika wouldn't survive the trip. What if he gets in? Aaron asked, trying to keep his voice steady. He won't. He's waiting for someone inside to make a mistake. And that's when the power cut out. A dry pop. Then darkness. The emergency generator kicked in, 10 seconds late. But in that gap, Mika's heart monitor had shut off. Aaron rushed to reconnect the system. Alina clutched the baby tighter, her eyes now wet. "This isn't just a scare," she said. "They know exactly where we are and what they're doing." Outside, the cameras now showed 2 men, one walking slowly along the sidewall, the other approaching the gate with a metallic object in hand. Aaron opened the wall safe behind the fireplace and pulled out the gun. He had never imagined actually using it. The weight felt wrong in his hand, like holding a mistake. But a full stop was forming at the end of this story, and he wasn't going to let Mika be erased like Lucas. "We're going to the basement," he said. "It's the safest spot. No windows, reinforced door." Alina didn't argue. They descended. Through a side passage, the air down there was colder, almost damp, like the house's past still breathed in those walls. Mika whimpered softly, his fever rising, as if he knew something worse was coming. At 3:27 a.m., the first metallic sound echoed through the house, an attempt to force the lock, then footsteps. Many. It wasn't just 2 anymore. There were at least 5 voices, speaking through radios. Aaron turned off every device that made noise. The basement went completely dark. And in the darkness, Helena finally broke. "I never told you how he was born," she said, her voice shaking. "Not just because it was dangerous, but because he was conceived without permission." Aaron stared at her, confused. "What are you saying?" She ran her hand over her face, like she wanted to scrub away the guilt. "When Lucas disappeared, I was already pregnant. But they found me. They tried to force me to give him up. Said they had to make sure no connection was left behind, no evidence. And I ran. I hid for months, alone. I gave birth in a shelter, and I never stopped running." Aaron's breath caught. They wanted to erase Mika. They still do. And in that moment, something exploded upstairs. The house shook. A second later, the basement door alarm triggered. They had found the internal access. Time was running out. Aaron looked at Mika, then at Alina. The past was finally colliding with the present, and there was no more room for doubt. This was war. Now, and what was at stake wasn't just a baby's life. It was a father's redemption, a father who failed his son, and who might only save himself by protecting his grandson. The dust hadn't even settled when Aaron pushed the cabinet away. From the basement door, the second blast upstairs rattled the ceiling. Small pieces of plaster fell onto Alina's shoulders. She held back her sobs, trying not to wake Mika. But even in sickness, the child sensed fear, like animals sense the scent of prey. His eyes blinked fast, unfocused, his breathing short, as if he already knew. The world outside doesn't forgive the fragile. Aaron held the gun, but his hands shook, not from fear of the men outside, but fear of himself. For the first time, he knew he wasn't ready to protect what mattered most. He'd built his life resolving things with contracts, lawyers, cold decisions. But now in the basement of his own home, with his grandson in the arms of a woman marked by abandonment, all he had left was courage. And it was fragile, unstable, like glass under pressure. "They're going to come in," Alina whispered, almost as a fact. Aaron nodded. He knew, and that's why for the first time in years he dropped to his knees, on the rough basement floor like a man finally realizing he'd lost control of his own story. "I failed Lucas," he murmured. "I thought I was preparing him for the world, but I was only teaching him to run from me." Alina didn't reply right away. She looked at Aaron with tired eyes, then slowly knelt beside him, still holding Mika like he was her last anchor. "You're not the only one," she said. "I failed too. When he died, I shut down. I wanted to disappear. And for months, all I thought about was giving up. If it weren't for Mika, I would have vanished completely." Aaron looked at her. There was a kind of honest desperation in her eyes, stripped of pretense. And for the first time, he didn't see Alina as a threat to the Veit family legacy. He saw her as the only person still carrying the most human part of Lucas. "Was I a good man?" Aaron asked. The question came out raw, unarmed. Alina smiled, but it hurt. He was light. Messy, intense, impulsive. But he was light, and he loved me like I was made of something worth protecting. The next explosion took out part of the stairs. Shouts began. Heavy footsteps echoed upstairs. They weren't probing anymore. They were hunting. Aaron stood. His phone still had signal. He entered the emergency code for a military contact, someone he kept on hand for corporate kidnapping scenarios. The protocol promised a 20-minute response. Too long. He looked at the baby. Mika had started coughing again. A wet, wheezing sound. The fever was back. His skin was cold. "He's crashing," Alina said. "His lungs—" "The doctor won't get here in time," Aaron murmured, his eyes starting to blur. She pulled a small vial from her backpack. "I saved this for the worst-case scenario. An antibiotic. Microdoses. But it might help stabilize him for a few hours." "Why didn't you use it before? Because if the fever came back and his body reacted badly, it would have been the end." Aaron took the vial. His hands still trembled. But there was a new resolve there now. An old rage, too. He injected the dose carefully. Mika whimpered softly. Alina whispered in his ear. And then something strange happened. The baby stopped coughing. Just for a few seconds, he looked at her and smiled. Even on the edge, he smiled. Aaron broke down again. This time in silence, because that child was everything Lucas could have been, if he'd just had more time. And then one of the intruders finally found the basement entrance. The metallic sound of a lever being forced echoed like a countdown. "Clark, go to the back hallway," Aaron said, handing Mika to Alina. "There's a door that leads to the cold storage chamber. It's small but safe. If they get in, they'll only see the main room. And you? I'll stop them." "Aaron, they'll kill you." He looked at her with a calm he hadn't shown until now. "If that's what it takes to keep Mika alive, then maybe I'm finally worth something." Alina hesitated, then ran with the baby, disappearing into the dark. Aaron returned to the center of the basement, gun raised, heart pounding like a war drum. But he didn't know he wasn't alone down there. One of the men had already entered through another access point and was standing right behind him. The click of the hammer cocking was louder than any explosion before. Aaron froze. The cold barrel pressed against the back of his head. Sweat ran down his temples, like his body was trying to escape before his mind could comprehend what was coming. For a moment, everything stopped. His heartbeat, the footsteps above, the entire world. Only that suspended second remained, where death was silent and absolute. "Turn around." Slowly, the voice behind him said, deep, unrushed, with the dry accent of someone who'd learned to kill before learning to live. Aaron obeyed. Slow, eyes scanning the dark. The man in front of him looked around, 40, pale face, unshaven, dark, eyes that didn't blink. The badge on his coat was fake, Aaron could tell. But the coldness in his gaze was real, the kind that doesn't come from hatred, but from training. "Where's the baby?" Aaron tried to keep his breathing steady. "He's not here anymore," a lie. The sweat on his forehead gave him away. The man pointed the gun at his chest, but didn't shoot. "You have no idea what you're protecting, Veit. That boy, he's not just some bastard with tainted blood, he's a bomb." Aaron held his gaze. "He's my grandson." "No," the man replied. "He's the last flaw in a system we've been trying to erase for years. Lucas found out too much, went too far. If that kid grows up, if he lives, he inherits everything, including the enemies." A chill ran through Aaron's spine. Mika wasn't just an emotional threat to the powerful. He was a living piece of something much bigger, something that endangered names, structures, fortunes. But at the same time, he was just a child, with fragile lungs, and a smile that could outshine fevers. "He didn't choose any of this," Aaron said. "You made him dangerous with your secrets. But here, he's just a kid, and I'll protect him with my life." The man stepped forward, the gun almost touching Aaron's chest. "Then you'll die." But before the shot could be fired, a sound broke through the dark, crying, faint, muffled, real. "Mika." The man turned. Aaron used the moment, charged, grabbed the gun arm, pushed it aside. The shot went into the ceiling, echoed like thunder. They fell to the floor, wrestling in the dark. Fists dull against concrete, bone against bone. The man was stronger, but Aaron was more desperate. Then Alina appeared, silent, Mika in her arms. A look that asked for nothing, only declared that she would no longer let anyone decide for them. She ran to the toolbox in the corner, grabbed a rusted wrench, and with precision struck the man at the base of the skull. He collapsed with a dull groan. Unconscious. Maybe dead. Aaron, gasping, sat back on the floor, his chest burning, hands shaking, bloodied. "Why did you come back?" he asked, his voice cracking. Alina knelt beside him, baby still in her arms. "Because it wasn't fair for you to face this alone." Mika was crying louder now, but it wasn't just pain. It was a cry of life, an instinctive call. Aaron reached out. Alina handed him the baby, and for the first time he held him like a man holding his own heart outside his chest. "I never understood Lucas," Aaron said, looking down at the boy. "But now holding him, it's like everything makes sense." Alina nodded. There were tears in her eyes, but no words, only presence. The outside alarm blared. Police had arrived. Backup. Too late for the worst, but just in time to stop. "The end. They'll ask everything," she said, "and I'll tell them everything for the first time, without lies." They looked at each other, and through the pain, guilt, and adrenaline, there was something new, relief. The first thread of something like hope. But not everything was over, because inside the unconscious man's coat pocket, there was a letter, sealed, with Alina's name written by hand, in red ink. And when she opened it, she would discover there was another name involved in all of this, a name Aaron never expected to see again. The envelope trembled in Alina's hands. Not from the cold. The fireplace had been warming the house since the authorities had arrived and taken the intruders into custody. It was something else, a kind of shaking that starts in the bones, passes through memory, and only reveals itself when you're staring at something that might change everything. Aaron stood just 2 steps from her, holding Mika, now slightly more stable. The boy was breathing better, eyes half shut. His body surrendered to the exhaustion of fever and survival. The letter smelled old. Wet ink mixed with something that reminded Alina of paper aged by secrets. She opened it slowly, as if even the tear could trigger another collapse. She read in silence, first fast, then slower. Her eyes widened. Her eyebrows drew inward. Aaron noticed but didn't ask. He waited. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaky, as if it had to cross 10 years of silence just to emerge. "This handwriting, it's hers." "Whose?" She looked at him like she was about to say something she had been trying to hold in for a long time. "Anna." The name stopped time. Aaron felt his stomach drop. Anna. The woman he had loved before becoming the man. The world knew. The only one who made him want to run from the company, from contracts, from the iron inheritance of the Veit family. "And also you, the woman who vanished. That makes no sense," he whispered. "Anna died in 1999, car crash in Berlin. I saw the reports. I went to the funeral." "She didn't die," Alina replied. "She ran, because she found out too much." Aaron sat down. His knees gave out. Mika stirred in his arms but didn't wake. Alina moved closer, sat beside him and spread the letter out on the table. Its contents were simple. 1 page. A few words. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it to protect Alina. She's my daughter. And the last one who still knows how to prove what they did to us, Aaron. If you're still the man I knew, help her, protect Mika, not as an heir, As a child, he carries our blood, but he doesn't deserve our pain. Signed, Anna Reifeit, her full name, the revelation unraveled. Everything. You're her daughter. I am, that's why they hid me. Because if anyone found out Anna had a daughter survived, the contracts, the alliances, the lies, all of it could collapse. Aaron looked at Mika, and it was as if he saw 3 generations reflected in that child's eyes. Anna, Alina, Lucas, all broken in different ways. And now, him. The silence that settled between them wasn't empty. It was thick, heavy, but something was different now. For the first time, they were both looking in the same direction. Mika's future. I need to ask your forgiveness, Aaron said. No filter, no armor. For everything. For ignoring who Lucas really was. For turning my back on you. For building walls where I should have built bridges. Alina didn't reply with words. She just rested her head on his shoulder. For the first time, she allowed someone to share that weight. And for the first time, Aaron didn't try to fix it. He just stayed. Present. Hours passed like that, Mika asleep, the 2 of them in silence. The house, now secured, seemed to breathe easier with them, until morning crept in, shyly, through the cracks in the window. That's when the doctor returned. The antibiotic helped. The infection's receding, but he'll need constant monitoring and peace. Aaron nodded. He'll have it, whatever it takes. The doctor paused before leaving. Aaron, will you do the test? What test? DNA. The question hovered in the air. Alina looked at him, but Aaron didn't hesitate. No, I don't need it. Not after holding this boy in my arms. Not after everything I've seen. The doctor left silently, but with respect in his eyes. Alina smiled. A small, almost invisible smile, but real. Thank you. Don't thank me. This is just the beginning. Outside, the snow had stopped. The first rays of sun touched the horizon. And inside the house, 3 generations that had nearly never existed were finally beginning to. But Anna's name in the letter, wasn't the only one. On the back of the page, written in smaller handwriting, almost hidden, there was another name, a name that was still alive, and had never stopped watching. The name was short, but enough to make Aaron rise like he'd been shot in the chest. 3 letters, Eli. Even here, surrounded by truths that changed everything, that name shattered him in a way nothing else could. Do you know him? Alina asked, seeing the color drain from his face. Aaron ran a hand through his hair, took a step toward the frost-covered window. Outside, the calm was only an illusion. Eli was my brother, or half-brother. Alina didn't speak. She waited, because she already understood. Aaron didn't need questions right now, he needed space, to open a door that had stayed locked for decades. My father's son from another woman. He was never recognized, but he was brighter than all of us. Brilliant, unpredictable, dangerous. When we were young, he tried to expose irregularities in the company, tried to take my father down, disappeared shortly after. They said he went to Asia, but I knew someone silenced him. Aaron turned. His eyes burned, but they didn't. He stayed in the shadows, watching everything. Alina turned the letter. Over again. Under the name in small lettering it read, Eli is watching. He knows who betrayed Anna, and who helped Lucas die. The shock fell into silence. Mika slept, chest rising and falling slowly, unaware of the storm his name stirred. That's when Alina's phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Just a link. She showed Aaron. He tapped it. A video began. Aaron recognized the setting instantly. His father's old office, demolished years ago. But the recording was recent. On screen, a lean man with grey hair and steady eyes stared straight into the camera. Eli, if you're seeing this, it means Anna didn't survive, and Mika's in danger. Lucas died trying to save someone. Alina, you. He didn't know at first, but when he found out, he decided he wouldn't let the system that destroyed us go on. My father tried to silence Anna. I tried to stop him. I was too late. But now, if Mika lives, he carries more than blood. He carries proof. Proof that our family wasn't just built on empires. It was built on omissions, on crimes, on broken people, trying to love in the middle of war. The screen flickered, then went black. Aaron stood pale. Eli never showed himself after our father died. Now I know why. He was waiting to see what I would do. Alina touched his arm. And what will you do? Aaron looked at Mika, then at her, and spoke like someone sealing something greater than any contract. I'm opening everything, files, contracts, documents. I'll hand them to the right people. I won't let Mika grow up inside the same lie. We did. But before he could say more, the front door burst open, and again. This time it wasn't mercenaries, it was federal agents, officials, with warrants. Alina instinctively shrank back. Aaron held her. It's okay, I asked for this hours ago. This is the final piece. The agents entered with folders, equipment and phones. And one question, where are the files that prove the fraud inside Vite Enterprises? Aaron walked to the safe, pulled out 3 encrypted hard drives and handed them over. Here's the truth behind the name, behind the fortune. The lead agent looked at him, skeptical. And why now? Aaron looked at Mika. Because he deserves to grow up knowing his grandfather wasn't afraid to do the right thing. Alina began to cry, silently, for freedom, for justice, for a courage that came late, but was real. That night, an empire began to fall. But from the ashes, something more worthy was born. Because sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what truly matters. But the fall of Vite Enterprises would not be peaceful, because someone who hadn't shown up yet felt betrayed. And they were coming. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass of the old house, as if asking permission to exist. For the first time in weeks, Aaron didn't wake to alarms, threats or sirens, just the sound of a soft laugh. Mika, still fragile, sat on a blanket in the center of the room, surrounded by simple toys and the gentle light of the German winter. Alina, lying on the couch, watched him with a quiet smile, like someone witnessing a miracle remake itself with every breath. Aaron sat by the fireplace, a cup of coffee cooling in his hand, eyes fixed on a letter he had received during the night. It was from Eli, no return address, no signature, just an envelope discreetly left at the gate by someone even the dogs hadn't noticed. You did the right thing. Even if late, that's enough. Now it's his turn. Aaron read the sentence 3 times, as if it might wash his sins clean. It didn't, but it offered something better, the chance to continue. And for a man who had spent his life frozen in his own mistakes, that was a beginning. He'll be walking soon, Alina said, approaching with Mika in her arms. Doctors say if he keeps improving like this, he can go home in a few weeks. He's already home, Aaron replied without thinking. Alina looked at him, not with surprise, but with something that looked like peace. And you? Are you really going through with it? He nodded. I already did. And paid the price. The press is exploding. Vite Enterprises will be dissolved. The partners, under investigation. And my reputation, well, that's gone. Alina sat beside him. And how does that make you feel? Aaron took a moment. Free. It hurts. But it's freedom. She smiled. Lucas would have liked to know that. He always said what held you back was fear. And it wasn't fear of losing money, it was fear of feeling. He was right. Aaron took Mika in his arms. The baby now recognized his scent, gripped his fingers like someone holding onto a branch to keep from sinking. And that's what Aaron was now, a branch, a support, something small but steady enough to keep someone breathing. The phone rang. Aaron answered, a cold voice on the other end. Mr. Vite, this is the district attorney's office. Just to inform you, someone's requesting a visit. She says her name is Johanna Eberhardt. Aaron stiffened. Johanna. Tell her I'm expecting her. Alina looked at him, a question in her eyes. Who is she? A journalist. The only one who tried to tell the truth when Anna disappeared. She was silenced, threatened but never gave up. And now, she wants to finish what she started. 2 hours later, Johanna arrived. Grey hair, sharp gaze, straight posture. She didn't apologize, just stepped inside, sat down, looked at Mika, and said, he has Anna's eyes and Lucas's mouth. then turned to Aaron. You know what you've done will reopen a lot of wounds, right? I do. And that the name Veit may never again be spoken with pride. Maybe that's for the best. She nodded. Why speak now? Aaron took a deep breath, then answered, because silence killed my son and almost killed my grandson, and I couldn't live knowing I stayed silent again. Johanna said nothing for a few seconds, then handed him a recorder. I want you to tell me everything. From the beginning. Aaron looked at Alina. She nodded. Mika slept in her arms, his chest rising gently, as if saying, Go, I'll wait. And so Aaron spoke. For hours, the whole truth, no edits, no excuses, just truth. When he finished, it was night. Johanna stood, shook his hand and said, You didn't save your son, but you might help others not lose theirs. At the door, just before leaving, she turned back. This boy, he's going to change a lot. Alina looked down at Mika. He already has. Aaron stood in the doorway watching Johanna disappear into the snow, then went back inside, sat down on the floor next to Alina, the two of them silent, their eyes on Mika. And it was there, cut without titles, companies or shields, that Aaron realized he was truly alive for the first time, because sometimes a life only needs one moment of courage. And someone who refuses to give up, even when everything seems lost. Thanks for making it this far, but don't go just yet. On the screen next to you is another powerful story waiting. Click, subscribe to the channel, and share. I'll see you there.